Good evening and good morning to one and all present here. I, Afreen Kalaso, am the Assistant Director for University Engagement and Partnership at LSAC Global, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all to the webinar on the topic Law Reimagined, Innovation and Future of Legal Practice, organized by LSAC Global under the Discover Law campaign. At LSAC Global, our goal is to ease the process of law school enrollments for law aspirants. We, as well as the special guests today on our panel, are with you in that journey. And we want to use this opportunity to help the law aspirants gauge at what lies ahead of them in this journey. On that note, I would like to begin with throwing some light on today's theme. The webinar is to help parents and students recognize the breadth and disruption and innovation impacting the legal academy and profession through discussions on the ever-changing landscape of the legal practice. We also aim to provide a glimpse into how law schools are retooling their curriculum to prepare students for modern-day legal practice. We are noticing a surge in the number of students who are interested in pursuing careers in law in India and internationally, and who place great value in gaining this education. So before we jump into this discussion, let me begin with the introductions of today's panelists. We are pleased to welcome Ms. Jennifer Leonard. Ms. Leonard is the Penn Carey Law's Chief Innovation Officer and Executive Director of the Future of the Professions Initiative. Before assuming her current role, Jen served as Associate Dean for Professional Engagement and Director of the Center of Professionalism at Penn Law. Jen advances educational and thought leadership projects that integrate an evolving understanding of what skills and knowledge lawyers need to thrive in a rapidly changing professional landscape. We are glad to have you on today's session, Jen. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Thanks, Jen. We're also delighted to have amongst us Ms. Devika Keval-Ramani. Devika is the partner and chair of Moses and Singer's Legal, Ethics and Law Firm Practice, which advises law firms, lawyers, legal departments on ethical and legal aspects of law practice. Devika also serves as the firm's general counsel. She dons many hats at the law firm and is a frequent lecturer, panelist, and author on legal ethics. Devika speaks to law firms, corporate legal departments, bar associations, professional groups, and law schools on a variety of legal ethics matters. We look forward to your expert comments on this topic, Devika.
Thank you, Afreen. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. We're also extremely honored to have with us Professor Dr. M. Gandhi. Dr. Gandhi is the Dean, School of Law at VIT Chennai. He is ML and PhD in International and Constitutional Law. With over 34 years of experience in handling diverse legal issues in different capacities, Dr. Gandhi has served as the member secretary to the High-Level Committee of Government of India to formulate legislation on civil liability of nuclear damage and submitted a report to the Department of Atomic Energy. He has a representation in multilateral forums and international institutions as member of the Indian delegation. Professor Gandhi is a man of great vision. We're really excited to learn what you have in store for our young audience today, sir. Thank you. We're also really pleased to have Professor Nigam, the Dean, School of Law, BML, Munjal University. Professor Nigam was previously a visiting professor at the National Law School of India University in Bangalore. He has also taught as an associate professor in the School of Policy and Governance at Azim Premji University, during which time he also headed the university's newly founded LLM program. Professor Nigam holds a DPhil from University of Oxford, Faculty of Law, and an LLM in taxation from New York University, and a BA LLB honors degree from National Law School of India University. Professor, your contribution in higher legal education is commendable. We really look forward to hearing your views today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So let us start with a brief opening comment from each one of you about advice you have for law candidates and why today is a good time to go to law school, especially with the changing times and dynamics in the legal fraternity. So I would request Ms. Devika to start with this comment, please.
We live in such uncertain and difficult times today. And for lawyers and for lawyers in training, this is a moment to really take pause and think about the future, and to think about how we as lawyers and as law students and lawyers, dreaming lawyers, can make a difference. There are clients of um, who need our help. And in every different field, whether it means help with legal and healthcare issues, or whether it's to do with buying a house or drafting a contract or preparing a will, whether these are complex issues or simple issues, our help is needed. And so anybody thinking in the lines of the law and how we can use our words to change the world, how the law has shaped our lives, but how as lawyers we can reshape the laws. I mean, I think it's a very empowering moment for any woman or any male student who's looking to enter this profession, which is a truly noble profession.
Thanks, Devika. I think you make a very important point in terms of the disruptions and innovations happening, why it is important for people to take law as a career. And over to you, Jennifer. Why do you think, and what advice would you give to students if they want to take up law?
So I would agree with everything that Devika said. I would also say I don't think in our lifetime there has been a more interesting and important time for people to be considering entering the legal profession. The strength of the legal systems is at the heart of what keeps us healthy as a society. And we need a new generation of students to come in and become trained to join our profession to help us solve problems in new ways. Today, we're talking all about how globalization, technology, changing culture, changing people, changing dynamics are impacting the legal systems, which have been very durable for a very long time. So we have not been trained to think in the ways that we are training new lawyers to think about how we expand access to justice, how we improve the delivery of legal services across the board. And I think that the diversity of roles that new law students will have the opportunity to occupy are proliferating every day. And I think that the profession itself is becoming more diverse, not only in a racial, ethnic, gender-based way, but in a way that embraces different personalities and different approaches to using your law degree in new and interesting ways to help solve problems. So I would say that my advice would be to be true to yourself and your skills and interests as you are going through the training, and not to think that you need to be modeling after what you think is the traditional lawyer, because that notion is changing, and that's an exciting change that will benefit everybody coming into law schools now.
Right, Jennifer. And I think I'll get back to you on the bit of the traditional lawyer and how those aspects are changing later in our conversation. Professor Nigam, what would be your stance on this?
I echo completely the points made earlier. It's a terrific time to be in law school. I think from both perspectives, from the perspective of skills, the previous panelists were mentioning contract drafting, but skills of a variety of roles in the commercial world and in the litigation world. Contract drafting is an example, but just writing memos, trying to advise clients clearly, precisely, and accurately on the legal issues that they have. It's never been a better time and more need for people with those skills. In addition to skills, the policy and the regulatory problems that are cropping up today need a set of people with innovative ideas. We can see what's going around us today. The circumstances that we're living in today weren't imaginable a few years earlier. And we need a set of bright young people to figure out the policy and regulatory challenges in these emerging areas such as healthcare and the environment. So I think it's a great time to be in law school, and I think law schools should respond to this challenge, both in terms of skills and in terms of policy. Thank you.
Right, Professor. Thank you for that. Dr. Gandhi, what would be your insight in that since you've been in this industry for a very long time, how do you see that sort of change or shift
Well,
happening?
I fully agree with my previous speakers because when I am I'm a student of 70s for my legal studies. You imagine those days you will have a 2 or 3 practicing areas. That's all. Now you have hundreds and hundreds of practicing areas and micro practicing areas within the area. It's a wonderful time for the law students. Apart from that, the law as a study is an enhancer. You need not be a lawyer all the time, even if you are an entrepreneur, if you are going for public service, or you are going for a corporate practice where you are not strictly, on law. It is a enhancer in a way that you will be able to do better things in a better way than any other persons. So, studying law, it will empower you in whichever way you really want to pursue. So that is a message I want to give. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gandhi, for that message. I think we can quickly move on to our fireside style. So here I will be asking the panelists questions in no particular order. On the same note, I request the audience members to write in their questions in the Q&A section, and we shall be taking those questions at the end of the session. So let me start with Jennifer here. So Jennifer, could you please share your journey as a litigation associate to the Chief Innovation Officer at UPenn? And can you also tell us about what the Future of Profession initiative is all about, its mission, and what is the focus there?
Thank you for the question. And Dr. Gandhi, I love that description of a law degree as an enhancer. I am going to borrow that. I love that framing. So yes, when I graduated from Penn Law School in 2004, I became a litigation associate with a law firm here in Philadelphia. I realized pretty quickly that that was not the ideal role for me. And I think that that's part of the lesson today, is that your career really is a journey. And I think sometimes law students struggle with that idea because they think they need to pick the perfect role from the outset, or else they're going to be led down the wrong path. And really what I learned was, I learned a little bit about myself in that job. I learned that I don't really like conflict all that much, so being in a litigation practice was not ideal for me. I was fortunate enough to have a professor who recruited me to work for the city of Philadelphia's law department, and I served as chief of staff there of an office of 300 attorneys. And it was the most interesting legal job I could possibly imagine. I met my husband there, and he referred to it as being an emergency room lawyer. You never knew what was coming in the door that day. It was always interesting. It was always high profile and complex and really urgent. And I learned in that role that I enjoyed working on many different projects at the same time and having really broad breadth of what I was focused on, and not so much a depth of working on one thing all the time. But what I was realizing in both of those settings was that the thing that separated the really good lawyers from the exceptional client service providers were a completely different set of skills that we hadn't learned in law school. And these really went to the human element of being a lawyer, how you develop relationships with your clients, with the partners you're working for, with your colleagues, and how you drive projects and build an inclusive team that is excited to work on a project with you. And there's a whole host of skills that law students need to learn to be able to do that well. And so I came back to the law school to oversee our professional development program, which was new at the time, the Center on Professionalism, in 2013. And as I taught about law firms and learned more about the legal profession, I saw all sorts of ways that we could be better at what we do from a systems standpoint. And so in 2018, our dean asked me to lead a working group focused on innovation in the law. And the outcome of that group's efforts, studying what is happening in the profession and how a leading law school can respond, became the Future of the Profession initiative, which I'm honored to lead now, which is a thought leadership and project-based hub that focuses entirely on the issues we're talking about today and developing responsive approaches that prepare our students better and help lead conversations about the change in the profession.
Right, Jennifer. And I think that really brings to the question that how are these skills being honed in a different capacity by different law schools all over the world and globally. And it also directs me to the next question from Ms. Devika is that, what attracted you to law and the legal profession? And if you could also share your journey, because when I see your practice, which is definitely dealing with legal ethics and law firm issues, that is something very niche. That area is very niche. It's still coming up. I don't think the Indian audience is very well versed with that. So we would really want to know, what is the scope of the same globally?
I was born and raised in Kolkata, India, and I moved to New York City, where I started and completed my law degree. I finished my college education in Calcutta, um, and my my entire professional life has been in the law and also in private practice. I was an associate. I used to do transactional work, and then I was offered an opportunity to serve as the firm's general counsel. And at that point, I realized uh, the um, the complexity of the legal profession, and I was also dealing with professional responsibility and ethics issues. And I approached the firm, and I wanted to start an outward facing practice in legal ethics. And that's something I actually started from scratch at my firm. It's something I wanted to build, which was a little different from other things in law, but was clearly integrally connected to every subject area of law and every lawyer in every kind of practice, because ethics comes up for every lawyer, whether you're practicing in New Delhi or in New York, Mumbai, or Manhattan. So you asked, what attracted me to law and the legal profession. I have to say that I've always been interested as a child in problem solving, and I have to say, as a middle child, I think I was the instigator of a lot of problems. So I always had to have an answer to everything. I was fascinated by the power of words. I was interested in writing, analyzing issues. But as I had mentioned earlier, I think what fascinated me was the laws that shape our lives, and what role a lawyer can possibly have in shaping, reshaping, and improving those laws. So the legal ethics practice is really an area of law, especially in the US. It's a highly regulated area. There's a code of ethics. The American Bar Association has a national framework for professional conduct, and every state has its own set of rules. I practice in New York, and so the New York rules of professional conduct are the rules that we are bound by, including law firms, not just lawyers. And they set out a set of fundamental duties that we as lawyers and law firms owe our clients. Some of the most basic things that you would say every lawyer needs to be concerned about: client confidentiality, competence in the work, avoiding conflicts of interest, communication with the client. I mean, these are all codified in our rules. Violating any of those rules could subject a lawyer or a firm to professional discipline. And those can have dire consequences. So lawyers try to be extremely careful in their professional conduct, whether it be with other clients or with the court, including opposing lawyers and opposing parties. So there are duties that are very far-reaching. And so what I do is I advise clients who come to me. These are all law firm clients or lawyer clients who want to make sure that they're not violating the rules. Or if there's been a violation, then how they can proactively do something about it. How does it apply globally? Well, ethics are critical to any lawyer's practice anywhere. So it's, I think, a pretty universal standard for lawyers wherever they are. Lawyers are held to very high standards, and client expectations are such that they're looking to come to somebody with trust, with confidence to help them through their problems. They could be simpler problems that can be easily resolved, but often they're very complex problems. So, regardless of where you are practicing, in some form or the other, every lawyer owes professional obligations and ethical duties to their clients.
Right, Devika. And I think it's important because even in law school, we do have a subject which is dedicated to professionalism and legal ethics. But how far law schools are taking it as an important aspect, we still need to consider that. And, that also brings me to my next question, and that's directed to Dr. Nigam. I know that the School of Law here at BML Munjal is an upcoming law school. And what are those new initiatives or curriculum BML is adopting now that we have so many disruptions happening around us, as Devika and Jennifer mentioned? Is the law school making the student industry ready? And what does the word innovation mean to your law school?
I think a couple of points might help us think about this in a more deeper way, I think. One is that um, I think when we draw up the law school curriculum, um, we have to take into account the fact that the students have to be exposed to a variety of subjects across the curriculum. So a typical undergraduate law curriculum in India is a BA LLB curriculum, and with some variations, some law schools such as us, we have BBA LLB as well, and some of the law schools have some other undergraduate component to the 5-year program. But let's take the BA LLB as the template for an undergraduate degree. So it's a 5-year program, undergraduate program. And the most important thing I think we should do is to give students a variety of subjects to choose from. I was struck by Jennifer's remark earlier that she had to go through various iterations in her career before she decided this is a good thing for me. This is not the thing that works for me. And I think the law students have to go through several iterations as well. I think they need to go through a variety of subjects in law school before they realize what really works for them, what interests them more. And the 5-year curriculum enables them to do that, right? So and should enable a good 5-year curriculum should enable them to do that. It should have subjects, a broad area of subjects, liberal arts mixed with the more traditional bread and butter legal subjects that we all learn. So variety is the first thing that we look for in a good curriculum. Any good law school should look for that. But in addition to that, and this is the second point I was going to make in response to your question about innovation, is that we must also look to the future. We must ensure that while students are going through subjects that might interest them one way or the other, they're also exposed to areas that will help them in the future, will make them industry ready, as the jargon puts it. And how do we do that is a question. That's a bigger challenge for us. And I think a couple of things going forward. I think any school that is interested in their students doing well in commercial practice, especially, has to introduce subjects that are related to commerce more generally. So in our law school, we have, just as a matter of interest, I decided that every law student should study Excel. And I didn't study Excel in my law school years, and I found it very hard when I became the dean to look at Excel sheets. And I said that I think there are people who live in Excel sheets all their lives. So I thought, let's see, all law students, I said, should study a course in Excel. And that's just an example of the kind of stuff that I think we need to look at when we look at commercial practice. I got a lot of pushback from my students, by the way, for that. They said, "What are we doing? We are law students. Why are you making us study Excel?" And I said, you'll curse me now, but I think it will be really beneficial for you later on. So that's one. I've introduced courses on accounting for lawyers at the law school. I think accounting is greatly underestimated in law schools. I think a lot of us realize when we go into the commercial world later on that basic accounting concepts, balance sheets, asset valuations, These are things that people take for granted in the commercial world, but are not really taught properly to lawyers in law schools. In addition to that, mine is a very young law school, but as it grows in the future, and I think for any law school, there are areas that I think are going to become almost, in terms of innovation, almost mandatory to study, right? So with the impact of artificial intelligence and machine learning, the impact of environment and climate change are areas that we didn't study when we were growing up, but these are areas that are really important for law schools and should become part of the law school curriculum. In fact, we are in the midst at our law school of revamping the entire curriculum in order to ensure that we have the kind of law and technology overlap that is required for any lawyers in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Nigam. I completely agree with the fact that law is a dynamic subject in its way, and there are innovations and additions happening every second. And it's important for law schools to integrate that in their curriculum. And that brings me again to Dr. Gandhi here, because VIT School of Law is also an institute of eminence. We would want to know how the School of Law there has adopted, the new policies may be introduced under the National Educational Policy 2020, and how does innovation fit in that specific vision?
No, thank you for giving the floor. See, the ADP is emphasizing more on the interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary courses. As stated by the previous speaker, the under Bar Council of India rules, we have to teach about 21 to 25 compulsory courses. So where only in the pedagogy there could be innovation, but there cannot be any innovation as far as the subject matter is concerned. But at the same time, our program is honors program in both BALLB as well as BBALLB, both programs, and where we have new courses added in different ranges. The range of courses, in the sense that there are about 57 courses. So the plate is full. They can just whichever the course they want. Say for example, AI and law is one course. Technology and law is another course. So like that, I can give any number of illustration how rich it is. That becomes possible because we have all the other centers of excellence there in the technical side. So we make use of that, and we make use of the fully, the prominent and a very good business school. So our BBA program is aligned with the program they offer at the master's and the bachelor's level, the business program. So where also there is a possibility that there are quite a number of specialized courses, which are all in the emerging areas. It is taught in the emerging areas. So one is, you have variety of programs, and these programs are completely given, and it is the choice is left to the students, whatever they want. And a similar way, the honing the skill, we give more importance. Say, for example, one person wants to be a corporate lawyer, and that particular setting, you'll go and do internship there. And somebody wants to be only the practicing lawyer, and then he will be made practice ready. So he will be participating number of moot courts, and he will be participating in number of trial memorial writing as well as appeal memorial writing, and he will be doing a lot of research. And the top of it, specialized inputs are there as far as the curriculum is concerned, where it is linked in almost all branches, comparative and international elements. Because without which you can't make a professional is comparable to people practicing other jurisdiction. So the interoperability is taken into consideration. When you are a lawyer, whether you are a lawyer for India or you are a lawyer of the world. So this focus is very clearly given. So on that basis, the honing skills are there, and it is a research-driven program. And each semester they have to write research papers. Then finally, It is a program in LLB Honors, a BLLB or BBLLB Honors, where there will be a complete dissertation on one area they have to, submit. When they are not qualified, then they are not qualified. That's all. So this is the curriculum is the one of the very important thing, and it's in such a way that our internal assessments are rigorous. It's full time. In the sense that the internal assessment will have about 60% of marks, and the final examination is only about 40% of the marks. A student is not continuously, attentive, and he is not taking up all the exams and group discussion, seminars, and other things, then it is very difficult for him to get through. That means you are giving every possible thing to make a person is industrial ready and practice ready. Thank you.
Right, Dr. Gandhi. Thank you. I believe that there has to be that holistic sort of an approach when it comes to a lawyer's training or a law school journey for a law aspirant. And, that really helps a student to come up as the T-shaped lawyer, which is what everybody talks about in today's day and age. And I can see, Jennifer nodding there and understanding that, why that is important. So, Jennifer, over to you here. You teach the innovation in practice, design thinking for legal professionals, right? This is a seminar that supports law students in learning how a client-centered mindset and powerful problem-solving frameworks can generate new solutions. So are there any new or modern trends that are disrupting this traditional practice, and how do you integrate that in the course? And have you added any few modules after, the whole COVID-19 pandemic? Are there any changes or tweaks you've made according to that in your current module?
Yeah, so thank you for the question, Afreen. We actually last summer ended up pivoting after the students we had in school at Penn graduated because their bar exam plans were disrupted. Most of the bar exams in the US were postponed till the fall. And usually the graduates take their exam in July. So we wanted to provide them an opportunity to learn in real time as we were going through the pandemic and trying to grapple with what it meant ourselves. We created 2 postgraduate skills bootcamp classes on design thinking for legal professionals. And these were non-credit bearing skills building programs that the students took part in from around the world. And we paired the students in groups with local business owners who were trying to navigate the legal complexities of the COVID-19 pandemic and the changing laws in the US around employment, around grant opportunities from the government. And really the class that I teach in the fall is a full-length seminar, the Innovation in Practice class you referenced, really helps the students understand that much of what we learn in law school focuses on the development of the lawyer's mind and the lawyer's critical thinking skills. And we don't, outside of clinical opportunities and legal practice skills and pro bono, spend enough time in the classroom thinking about what the experience is like from the client's perspective. How are we delivering those legal services in a way that is helpful, useful for the client, digestible, understandable? So that is what we do in the full-length seminar. And we did do 2 shorter 5-week boot camps where the students learned how to engage in empathy interviews, how to listen well to what their clients were trying to achieve. It was a very interesting experience as well, because as the pandemic unfolded, the challenges our volunteer clients were facing became more dire and more serious. So the skill building on the student part went from simply trying to redesign the way that they deliver legal services to trying to deeply understand and navigate the emotional challenges that their clients were having. So the tenor of the conversations with their clients at the beginning were a little bit lighter and a little bit easier for the students to absorb. And then as the situation became more challenging for their clients, it became more challenging for the students, which was beneficial for their learning to see how a client's experience in the world changes. So what we try to do is bring in a different framework that is borrowed, to Dr. Gandhi's point, about different disciplines, that is borrowed from the fields of business, from engineering, from design, to think about putting the client at the beginning of the problem, and then working in a way that draws from different disciplines to design new solutions to deliver legal services better, and in a more efficient way. So I would say that the changes that are happening around us have been accelerated in the last year, but the technology, the globalization, the need for faster and more useful legal services has only accelerated in the last year. And so we continue to try to find ways to help our students respond to that and be prepared to help their clients navigate that.
Thanks, Jennifer. I really wish, the Indian law schools also adopt these sort of courses and modules so that the student is ready for any changes or challenges which come their way. And that also brings me to Ms. Devika next here, because I believe that when it comes to legal ethics and law firm practices, again, you have to evolve yourself through, using different technological tools. And as also as a woman in this profession, how do you think it is important for the women to continue their growth, with certain challenges like this and take up leadership roles? What would you advise the young girls who are listening to you today about the legal practice globally?
I would say absolutely. It is a watershed moment for women. To have more visibility in the legal profession, but they have to start somewhere. So before you can get to the legal profession, you have to get through legal education. There are more women law students today than 5 years, certainly 10 years ago. And would-be clients, there are many more women who are would-be clients. There are more women CEOs, more women bankers, more women entrepreneurs. Yet, the challenge is this: we are seeing significant attrition of law students, some from law school, but we see this in the legal profession, where young lawyers join, and I'm speaking from a private practice standpoint, but it's probably true of government or public interest organizations. Women join, they have promising futures in law, but somewhere along the middle of their life as a mid-level associate, and certainly into more senior positions, there is dropout. And that is very unfortunate. So what I think is critical at this moment for all of us to think about is why is that happening? Women, we have to find a way for women law students and women in the legal profession to remain engaged in the legal profession. And I think we have to find ways for them to overcome the various social, economic, and even cultural barriers that are preventing them from staying in the profession. And this is a global problem. It's not India, it's not America, it's happening everywhere. So I think it's important for women to have the support system around them and really to view law as a career as opposed to a job. And I think that is the mindset that women and men, we all have to kind of take together and support women going forward. In terms of, where the practice is today, and, lots of things have been said about innovation, being a global lawyer, being the T lawyer. I think that from a legal ethics standpoint, the needs of the client has not changed. Our practices have changed. Legal education has shifted. Technology has become a big part of everything. Globalization has happened. But the clients are the same. They still have the same kinds of problems, whether they're corporate clients or whether they're individual clients or whether they're family clients, right? So the complexities remain and the ethics issues remain. Has the lawyer made a mistake in the course of the transaction? Have they dropped a zero in the value of the deal? Who do they tell? Do they need to tell their supervisor? Do they need to go to the client with that? There are ethics duties surrounding that. Did they miss a deadline? And is a client going to get deported? Or is they going to have criminal consequences? Again, what do they need to do from an ethical standpoint to deal with that? has the lawyer accidentally divulged client confidential information? What do you do about that? Clients are the essence and the core, because it's the client's service and the client's expectations we're trying to meet as lawyers. And as law students, we're trying to get there. So that really is at the center of everything that we think about. And I just want to mention one other thing with technology and all the benefits of technology and the cost saving that it brings, the efficiency that it brings. And this is not just from an ethical standpoint, but I think it's really important for us to remember that with COVID happening, younger lawyers have not had the kind of client access they would have normally had if they were in the office setting. They have not had the kind of interaction with their peers, which is essential to learning the ropes and doing your job. And they have not had the supervision from their senior lawyers in the same way that you can in an office, but now I guess through Zoom calls and phone calls and other ways of being supervised. Those are all essential elements to how you learn and grow as a lawyer. You can master the subject matter really well, but it's everything that surrounds that, including what the client is really looking for and the dynamic of the practice that really counts. So I think while the delivery model for law has shifted, when we hit the button and we send the document, have we really done all the due diligence and done the careful analysis and review of what our task was for the client before we hit that button? The clients are, we have AI technology today that in many ways is replacing what some junior lawyers are doing in terms of online research and putting memos together. They can do amazing things. But at the end of the day, what is the lawyer providing the client? Why did the client come to them with trust and confidence to give them something that would help them achieve their goal? And if that has not involved the kind of careful analysis and judgment, which is what is unique to what a lawyer delivers, then we haven't done our job.
Right, Devika. I think you really make an important point when it comes to client relationships, because at times as lawyers, we tend to forget that, right? We get so much involved in our daily mundane work with, preparing briefs, but the important aspect of actually satisfying the client somehow takes a secondary position, which also, brings me to the next question. And this is addressed to Dr. Gandhi here, that what are the regulatory bodies in India, like the BCI, doing in shaping the legal professionalism in India? I know there have been a lot of changes when it comes to the LLM program, which they are introducing, or there are changes regarding, having some sort of an experience if you want to be a judge at the High Court or the Supreme Court level. But other than that, do you think there has been any change since the inception of the regulatory bodies, and what should be an additional aspect to look forward to now?
Thank you. The problem in India is all the legal educational institutions are not like billiard balls. They are different. There are certain Ivy League type educational institutions. There are certain private institutions, and there are some state institutions which lakhs and lakhs of enrollment, and where 3,000, 4,000 people are taking examination. Even the 1,200, 300 will be there for Delhi University admission, the seats. So the approach from the Bar Council of India so far is only the minimalistic approach, because it is professional at the same time a general education law is concerned. And you cannot close it for everyone. And they want to be a professional and they have to qualify themselves, get experience by themselves, exposed to the practice, and they have to come up. This is the old standard, and the same standard continues. And originally in the 60s, there is only 2 years program after the graduation. I don't know how many of you know about it. It is, the FLBL, the first year law and the BL. That's all. Most of the Supreme Court judges, I believe, at least few of them will be FLBL type people. Then after that, 3 years program. It is after graduation, 3 years, and you will take only the essential 20 courses or 21 courses and finished. That's all. But in the 80s, again, we have gone for the 5-year integrated programs. And these are all, these happened when the National Law School of India University and that type of institutions, they launched it. And there are a lot of committees also on legal education. There was a Pune seminar on legal education. Based upon that, finally, they wanted to have the 5-year integrated program. And they made it, you can have a 3 years program or a 5 years program as the case may be. Then after some time, what happens, the 5 years program becomes default in most of the institutions today. So with the result, you have number of courses are more. The law courses are more. It has been increased. If it is, again, a harness program, it is also more number of courses will be added up. Now, the Bar Council has a legal education committee and it has a curriculum development committee. But unfortunately, what happens is the revision of a curriculum or anything that doesn't happen and every alternate year. It is supposed to happen like that, but it happens in every 10 years, 15 years, something like that. So I would rather agree with Dr. Nigam that how to make the particular curriculum rigorous, useful, it's all left to the institution is concerned. When they prescribe a minimalistic standard, the maximalistic standard, and whatever is added to suit the needs of the today's society, it's all the vibrant law schools, they work on that. And it is not mandated by BCI. Then the BCI now, it is only very recently they come with a examination, All India Bar examination. Before that, it was not like that. You get a LLB degree and you enroll, you practice, you start practicing. Now bar examination is there. And now with the NEP, and there is a All India, the Association of Indian Universities and OP Jindal Global University, they have come up with a document on that. And it is more of an aspirational document because the NAP, the point they have mentioned there in class 40, it is about only 3 paragraphs on legal education. And these 3 paragraphs are that they will not come under UGC, they will not come under Higher Education Commission. It is completely controlled by Bar Council of India. Already the professional, as a professional course, it is a Bar Council of India control as a regulator. But now it becomes a sole regulator, try to become a sole regulator, not only for the LLB program, for LLM program also. So whatever the liberty that the universities enjoyed, and these are all completely now take away by a notification by Bar Council of India, and that notification is now, it is challenged, it is before the court of law. So I would say that the LLM program, as far as the regulation is concerned, it is a non-starter. They want to have it the 2 years LLM. Earlier, the UGC allowed the 2 years as well as 1 year LLM side by side. So now this, if it are 2 years, then 1 year, qualitatively some difference must be there, but nobody talks about that. So it is only a structural change and rest to be added there. It is only the skeleton and flesh and blood to be added. So it has not been launched yet. Slim limbo. So this is the situation of legal education as far as the controlled by the Bar Council of India today.
Right. And, that also brings me to the next question. It's again directed to Dr. Nigam here. Dr. Nigam, you were also one of the leading faculties to build up the LLM program at Azim Premji University. And now with this whole change by the Bar Council of India regulations on the LLM program, how do you think the same is going to impact the higher education system in India? And how far do you think regulatory bodies should control academic freedom when it comes to law schools in India building up their curriculum?
Um, yeah, I mean, So your question is or my answer to your question with two parts then. I think you asked about the LLM issue first, and then also about the role of regulatory bodies in curriculum development. So am I right? I think those are two separate
That's
questions that
right.
we are talking about.
That's
Okay,
right,
right.
Dr.
So on the LLM, I was very closely involved with the LLM curriculum and development at Azim Premji University, and of course, I've also done LLM in the US before I came back to India, and I always felt that there are advantages to both 1 and 2 year LLMs, and I don't really understand why we need to see it in terms of a binary, that one or the other. I think 1 year LLM is very useful in various practice and skills oriented courses. The LLM I did was LLM tax at NYU. Devika will acknowledge that it's a really rigorous 1 year tax LLM. Almost all the US tax lawyers go in working in New York go to that LLM. It's a great place to learn this kind of skills you need to be a good tax lawyer. It's not a LLM that's meant necessarily at research and education. It's meant as a gateway to a certain kind of practice, and I think a 1 year LLM serves that purpose very well. But a 2 year LLM is um, is is needed in a setting where you want a student going towards academia, and you want him or her to develop skills in research and writing, and in innovative kind of forward-looking work that requires a little bit of time, requires some incubation period that goes beyond 1 year. And 2 year LLMs are very useful there. A lot of our students who complete the LLB need not necessarily have the kind of skills that are needed to do their PhD. And that 2 year LLM can serve as a good bridge course between the BLLB or the LLB and a PhD. So there is a lot of value in a 2 year LLM. I can see why the BCA is concerned about 2 year LLM. I don't understand why that should exclude a 1 year LLM. I don't know why there should be one or the other. So that was my answer to your first question. Your second question, the role of regulatory bodies in curriculum development, I think they have a role. I think there's no country in the world where the regulatory bodies don't have a role in legal education. US and UK also, the lawyers and lawyers societies have a great role to play in legal education. The question is, how prescriptive are they? So Mr. Gandhi, remember, started his talk by saying that there's a list of mandatory courses that we have to do. There's no other way. And I think we need to prune that part of the curriculum a little bit. We don't need I don't think we need regulation to the extent that it is highly prescriptive about the number of classroom hours that one needs to have in a curriculum, the number of subjects mandatorily that one needs to teach in the first 3 or 4 years. I think we should let the law schools figure that out. A lot of law schools have different ways of figuring it out, right? Some law schools may say classroom teaching is okay, but we also need to focus a lot on experiential learning. Other law schools might say we need to focus a lot on academic research. Some law schools might say we need to focus on environmental studies in the 3rd and the 4th and the 5th year. I know of law schools, including my law school, that are greatly interested in alternate dispute resolution, and we want to focus a little bit on that. My law school is also part of a larger university that has engineering and a management school, and so we would like to have programs with them for our law students, and we would like to have some flexibility in the curriculum. And I think sometimes regulatory bodies, I think, need to take that into account. So I think they have a great role to play, but they need not be as prescriptive as they are right now. So that was my answer to the second question. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nigam. I hope those things are added to. I think, Dr. Gandhi, you have a comment here. You wanted to add something?
Oh, nothing. It is perfect, and he is perfect, but he is a bit diplomatic. That's good.
Right. No, but I really hope, and especially for our law aspirants who are watching this, there has to be some sort of, advice taken from the deans of leading law schools to understand what is the need of the hour. We're running a little ahead of our time, so I would actually switch on to the questions which have been shared by our audience members and to the panelists. So the first one being by Ms. Gauri. She asked that, do you see India being able to adapt and welcome changes in legal careers and ventures into further unconventional legal practices? She believes that there is lack of diversity within the legal community. So probably, Dr. Nigam and Dr. Gandhi, you could address this, and Ms. Devika and Jennifer could add on to these unconventional legal practices which India can adopt. Over to you, Dr. Nigam.
Um, I need to understand the question. When she,
Yes,
what
I
does
will
she
just
mean by?
repeat that.
Yeah, yeah.
She's saying, is India actually welcoming changes in legal careers when it comes to unconventional legal practices? Now that we see the kind of practice Ms. Devika ventures into, or the kind of professional courses Jennifer has come up with, do you think India is ready for those changes? And she believes there is a certain lack of diversity when it comes to the legal community in adopting these legal practices and the unconventional changes.
I don't think either Devika or Jennifer are in unconventional legal practices at all. I think they're doing exactly what the legal profession needs to do. I think I have great optimism for the kind of work that is going to open up, as long as our students are open to it. I think this is my favorite topic in all the letters to law students that I write, which is that our law students have to be open to looking at law firm, looking at what they're going to do with the law in various different ways, and not just look at it only transactionally. Not look at it as what am I going to get out of this legal career, or this job, but to look at what various kinds of things I can do, to use Mr. Gandhi's word, to enhance whatever skills I already have. Devika made a very good point earlier on when she said that we want students to look at law as a career, not just as a job. And part of that means look at all the kind of diverse things that can happen, that one can do with the law. My students at the National Law School, Bangalore, have gone on into the number of mind-boggling number of different kinds of practices that I wouldn't even have imagined when I was a student. Some of them have become historians, policy experts, civil servants, litigators, human rights campaigners, um, um, authors of various works. So the world is open to what they can do, and I believe it'll happen in the future as well, because of the kind of stuff that we need to have, the kind of expertise we need to have in healthcare, environment, and technology. I think that is. I was on a related note. I was going to some of the job profiles in one of our WhatsApp groups, and one of it mentions this. These recent regulations on OTT platforms, Netflix and Amazon Prime, and now all of them need to have a compliance officer that looks at all the complaints that one people gets because of the programs. And now that there's a position that actually opened up and that's been advertised, and that position did exist 6 months ago, right? So you can see how things move dynamically, and law students should be open to it. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Nigam. Ms. Devika, Dr. Gandhi, I think, has something to add.
I
Yes.
agree fully with him, because the practice area, when you select, you must have an experience first to select what the practice area you want. The problem here is whether you want to have a particular practice area. When you don't have knowledge on that, you will not be able to just first, you research out first, find out from people in the practice area and what is happening there. Whether your heart tells you that, whether that is the practice area that is more suitable to you, then all these things you have to do. That is why I said that it is a great enhancer. A choice is yours. You can be anybody if you want. I'll tell you one story. The year before last year, one of my final year students in LLB program, he wanted to study sports law in India. And he said that, why can't you start sports law? I told him that, all right, you find 15% minimum, then I will open sports law. Then he said that that is not possible, but will you help me in getting that? Finally, he has joined in one of the top university in Brazil, which is devoting exclusively for sports and law. So you must have first a thirst to do that. Second, not the ambition alone will not do. You have to do the necessary footwork and you have to just research on that. And it is suitable for you. If the gestation period is more, whether in your social circumstances will permit you to have that kind of expertise, all these things needs to be done. It is not, X is like that, Y is like that. Everybody is uniquely created. Everybody's knowledge base is unique. Everybody has a talent. And everyone has to find out where really they do and perform well. They have to take it.
Thank you, Dr. Gandhi, for that. Ms. Devika, do you have anything to add to this?
Yes, I agree with everything that's been said, and being the poster child for someone who actually started something from scratch without having any sense of whether it was going to be whether it would stick, leave alone say that it would be a success. I agree. I mean, a lot of footwork has to go into it. If you have a dream, you just cannot keep dreaming. You have to wake up and do something about it. And I think you have to walk a few steps ahead of yourself and think about how you might go forward with it. Now, I did this in the context of an existing law firm where there were lots of different practice areas. Mine was not one of them, but there was an organic way in which it fitted in. My clients are law firms and lawyers. My firm does work where lawyers and law firms are usually on other sides of matters, litigation or transactional. But so the industries are different. Mine is a much narrower industry, right? But it's one thing to have the thirst and the hunger, which is terrific, but I think one also has to be somewhat practical and be prepared. I think there was a question here about failure. How do you deal with failure? You have to kind of think about it not working out, but be willing to take the steps, because at least you would have tried, and that you would not later say, I didn't even try. This is something I wanted to do. So I think you kind of have to follow your instincts a little bit, take a few risks, not too many big risks if you can help it, but your skill that you develop, the knowledge that you develop has to kind of work out for you in connection with, well, is there a client need for this? So you want to attend as many. So if this is an innovative area, to kind of go back to the question you raised earlier about legal practices generally and unusual practices, with regard to ethics, I think that there's kind of a general sense, and I don't think that that's necessarily true everywhere, but it's like maybe an abstract, aspirational thing. No, it's actually it's an area of legal practice, right? So depending on what this innovative type of legal practice might be that someone's considering, you want to see whether there's a need for it, where the clients will come to you for it if you've developed the expertise, the knowledge, and the skill set. And again, how do you do that practically? You try to speak to people who've done that or are trying to do that in your community or otherwise. You want to attend as many conferences as you can. You want to study the area. You want to research it. You want to see if there are any gaps that you can fill. One gap that I noticed that I thought I could fill was that with law firms, many very large law firms, and Jennifer, you might know this, have their own internal general counsel or their own internal ethics counsel who handle their firm's issues. Now, I was doing that in my firm. I'm still doing that, but I also wanted to do that for outside law firms. So the question is, what would be the market that I might be able to service? And what I learned was many larger firms had people internally who were their own ethics go-to people, but mid-sized and smaller firms may not have that internal resource, and they may not know that they could go outside to get that kind of advice. So maybe that's a sweet spot that I could fit into. So you kind of want to learn as much as you can and then try to fit the pieces together. It's not a perfect puzzle. It never will be. And you kind of have to play it day by day and see how you can get to where you want to.
Thanks, Devika. Yes, Jennifer.
If I could just build on all the great points that the panelists made, and also say, I'm sure that if you had asked Devika when she was in law school, if she envisioned herself building an entirely new practice area, she would say, no, I'm going to do this, because as Devika said so well at the beginning, it is a career, not a job. And you will learn something, to Dr. Gandhi's point, that everybody has gifts and skills to bring to the table. And it takes time to learn what those skills are that you have. And I know in junior practice, as I referenced at the beginning, sometimes it can feel, when you're not sort of thriving in the role that you have, that maybe you've made a mistake in selecting a field or selecting a firm or selecting a role. And I would say that I had that mindset at the beginning. I've made this mistake, and now I have a job that I'm not enjoying the way that I thought that I would. But now, with the benefit of hindsight, it's all learning. And to the question about failure, we certainly don't intend to fail, but we will all fail. We will all make mistakes and stumble. But it's important that we're learning as we go what those mistakes or stumbles or challenges or misalignments tell us about ourselves. And then as your career grows, and you develop more talent, more skills, you become more marketable as an attorney, you're able to identify, looking back at those different experiences and saying, here is something I really did not enjoy. It does not suit my personality. Here are other things where I'm really strong. And how can I identify new roles that have much more of these in my Excel column, and much fewer aspects that relate to the things that are misaligned with my personality and skills. And I think the attendee also asked at the end the question about the lack of diversity in the profession. And this is a point where I want to say I share the optimism of the panelists, because we have had a dismal record. Devika referenced earlier the attrition rates among women in the profession. Women coming into law school are 50-50 as compared with their male colleagues. And yet at the partnership level, the percentages are so low. So what is happening in that time period? What gives me hope working with our law students is that the generation of students in law school now will not stand for it. They are very, very interested in equity and inclusion. They want to be part of organizations that value equity, inclusion, diversity. And when you look at recruiting young talent, the brightest minds out there, they have a host of options. And to continue to be attractive as a profession, we need to embrace and leverage that diversity to help us solve new problems. So I would say I'm optimistic about that point. And I think that this is the time when you can actually bring these gifts and this diversity and have it be a strength, versus 20, 30 years ago when maybe you were, not a good fit for the profession because the profession looked in this way and you didn't conform to that. And I think that that's changing, and that should be exciting to people coming into law school now.
Right. Thank you, Jennifer. I think this one question really covered a lot of aspects of, the other audience members, the questions other audience members were seeking an answer to. So before we wrap up, I just have this one last bit, and I request every panelist to come in and pitch in for this question, is that if given a chance, how would you like to shape the legal education and practice for the future? So just in 10 seconds, if you could wrap that up for us, I think that will really help students to align their thoughts as to how their law school journey could look in the future. So, Devika, would you want to go first?
Well, I think keeping an open mind and always remembering that law is a profession, it's not a business, and that we have a special responsibility, and it's a privilege to be able to serve clients.
Thank you, Devika. Dr. Gandhi?
I would say that the law school must provide all the opportunity to the students, whether he wants to go as a corporate lawyer, transaction lawyer, or a practicing lawyer and a full-fledged litigating lawyer, or he wants to be the best, public service lawyer, because these are all important. Say, for example, in my own specialist area, international law, unless and until you are part of the government, you don't practice international law. So those who aspire to be an international lawyer and he has to practice international law, he has to get into the State Department. Otherwise, he is not a practitioner. So somebody, wants to be an international lawyer, and the gestation period is more and more. You must understand that. That's why I say that you have to do certain footwork. But the opportunity should be given to all the people in whichever way they want to be. So that opportunity must be available within the law school. That is what I imagine a kind of a law school, and which will be able to produce not only the lawyers, statesmen, and that is important for me.
Thank you, Dr. Gandhi. Over to you,
May I
Dr.
just
Nigam.
add something when you're done, with the panel?
Sure, Devika. I'll get back to you on that. Yes, Dr. Nigam.
Thank you. My thoughts are that law schools should focus equally on doctrine and on skills. I think in the past, law schools have focused more on the former, teaching prescriptively whatever content they need to speak to for students. And I think we need to transition from there. We need to go from content prescription to skills development, especially our very important oral and written skills in the law. So that transition is what I look forward to, from pure doctrine to doctrine and skills. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nigam. Over to you, Jennifer.
Thank you. Agree with everything everyone has said. And I think I would shape legal education in a way where law schools help law students, especially first-year students, understand the power of their network that they're building around them, and viewing their classmates less as competitors for grades and more as the community of people that they will draw from over the course of their career, so that they stay connected and they enjoy the benefit of the growth of their network's achievements. And I also think teaching teamwork in law schools, and not just putting people into teams to do projects, but actually helping them understand team dynamics and how to collaborate well and effectively and inclusively, and helping students navigate ambiguity. I think the future really holds much more ambiguity than the past did, meaning that we won't be able to look to senior attorneys and say, exactly what should I be doing to chart my path in this direction, because the opportunities will be limitless. So helping students by providing opportunities for them to understand how to navigate that ambiguity and design new opportunities for themselves. And part of that is leveraging a multidisciplinary education. Everybody has referenced the importance of drawing from other fields. And so as you're researching law schools, I would focus on the schools that really embrace interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary education.
Right. Thank you, Jennifer. Devika, you had something to add on to this.
Thank you. I wanted to mention that we have to think of ways to closing the gap between legal education and law practice. And it was mentioned earlier that practical tools are necessary, but I think what's also really important is that younger lawyers and students who are looking to go into the law have mentoring opportunities where they reach out to senior lawyers or others in the profession and talk about what their experiences are. Because it's not enough for someone to walk into law school or start their career and have people tell them, but you knew what you were getting into. So why is this so hard? I think it's really important for them to really find those mentors, hold on to them, and use them as life coaches through their careers.
Right, Devika. Thank you so much for this insightful, chat today. I would really thank the panelists from the bottom of our hearts for taking out time to be part of this webinar. It has been truly an informative one for me personally as well. And we at LSAC Global, we are driven by this goal to diversify and strengthen legal systems here in India. And because of this sort of firm belief, I want to make sure and tell all the law aspirants listening to us today that we continue to be available for you in your law school journey. I know we have a series of questions which have come our way and we couldn't address them. I would request you to write to us. We'll definitely get back to you on this. I know that we are stuck in this really difficult and challenging times right now, but we've made sure that there are resources available to you, to the law aspirants as well on our website. You could visit the discoverlaw.in website. I also request students to register for the LSAT India examination, which is scheduled from May 29th onwards. The last date for registration is 14th May. We also offer test prep materials for practice via our LSAC Law Prep platform, where you can practice and strengthen your LSAT India scores. Additionally, I would say that we also support the law school journey of a law aspirant by offering two scholarships. Those scholarships are worth rupees 4 lakh each. One is for the LSAT India topper, and the other is based on an essay competition. So the last date for the submissions for the essay competition is 1st June 2021. For more details, I would again request students to visit our website. The details are mentioned in the chat box. Also, a special thanks to our media partner, Loctopus, for supporting us always. I thank the panelists for taking out time from their busy schedules to motivate law aspirants today. I thank the audience members also for their active participation, and the LSAC global team for the successful conduct of this webinar. I wish to see you all soon physically. Till then, stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you so much.